Afternoon. I extend a warm welcome to all of you on 8th day of this 10-day national training program on smart weed management for sustainable agriculture, jointly organized by Indian Society of Weed Science and ICAR-Directorate of Weed Research. So we have scheduled 3 lectures for today. So first lecture, which is on smart weed management in wheat. So our speaker is Dr. R.S. Chhokar, sir. So I will introduce Chhokar, sir. Dr. Chhokar is working as Principal Scientist Agronomy at ICAR-Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, Karnal, and involved in the research, teaching, coordination, and extension program of the Institute. Dr. Chhokar has 26 years of research experience in wheat and barley. He was associated in institutional, national, and international externally funded projects and handled about 60 contract research projects as project leader. He has made significant research contributions in the field of weed management in wheat-based cropping system, with special emphasis on herbicide resistance management, wheat agronomy, and conservation agriculture. He has reported new cases of herbicide resistance in wheat and developed their effective management strategies too. So he has published more than 100 research papers in various international and national journals. He is the recipient of various awards, including Distinguished Scientist Award 2008 by Society for Recent Development in Agriculture, IJWS Best Field Scientist Award 2013, then Fellow of Indian Society of Wheat Science, Fellow of Society for Advancement of Research on Wheat and Barley, and Professor Mahatim Singh Memorial Award. So with this brief introduction, I would like to invite Dr. Chhokar, sir, for his presentation. Sir, please.
Thank you, madam, for nice introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm presenting my presentation on smart weed management in wheat, and I am sharing my slide. It is visible, madam?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay, thank you. As we know that weed infestation is a major biotic constraint in limiting production and productivity of wheat. And if we see the various workers, they have reported various level of losses in case of wheat. Harrington reported that in case of wheat, the annual regional productivity loss is about 8%, whereas Orake from globally reported that in case of wheat, the potential yield loss is around 23%. And in spite of application of weed control measures, still about 8% loss is there. It means that we need efficient weed management strategy in case of wheat. And Gharde et al. 2018 from IJWS Jabalpur has reported that the losses in case of wheat is around 7.5 to 41%, causing about $3,376 million losses in case of wheat. In extreme cases, weed can cause the complete crop failure. It has been observed in case of Felis minor. And if we see, there are different instances where we observed the complete crop failure. After Green Revolution, during late 70s, when there was no effective herbicide for control of grass weeds, there were instances that this weed caused the complete crop failure in case of wheat. Again, when there was evolution of isoproton resistance in Felis minor during 90s, there were also instances that in Haryana and Punjab, there was the complete failure of this wheat crop and farmer harvested his wheat crop as a fodder. Again, after the evolution of multiple herbicide resistance in this wheat, there are instances that there are complete crop failure and farmer harvested wheat crop as a fodder. Besides yield losses, the weeds also reduces the quality of this produce when it is contaminated with weed seeds. And some of the weeds which have spines on their leaves and stems interfere with the manual harvesting. And weeds like this Rumex dentatus, which has very vigorous growth in resistance prone area, and sometimes we have observed that it interfere with the combined harvesting also. Some of the weeds like Berberis vulgaris harbor some of the disease like rust. And keeping this in view, we need that efficient weed management is must for the sustainable wheat production. If you see in case of wheat, these are the different weeds. And among these, the 4 weeds, Perlis minor, Avena, Ludoviciana, Pova, Nova, and Polypogon, these are the major grass weeds. And among broadleaf weeds, which are the major is Medicago, Denticulata, Chinopodium, and Rumus dentatus. These are the problematic broadleaf weeds. If you see among grasses weeds, the most problematic weed of wheat is Ferlis minor. It is problematic weed of wheat in irrigated area, and about 50% of the wheat area is infested with this weed. And this is a highly competitive weed. And if we are going for early sowing, there is less problem. But when we are going for timely and late sowing, its problem is high. And as a result of this heavy problem of this weed, it has also evolved the resistance against some of the herbicides, particularly in Northwest Plains zone in Haryana and Punjab. Another weed which is problematic grass weed is wild oak, and it is also highly competitive, and its problem is found more in case of early sown, and it is not a problematic weed in rice wheat system, particularly where the rice is followed under puddled transplanted condition. It's the puddle and stagnation of water and puddle condition disturb the viability of its seeds, and it is not a problem there. But in light soil, it is a problematic weed except in rice wheat system. Other system, it is a problem in irrigated wheat. Polypogon monspelensis, rabbit foot grass, it is also a problem where there is more moisture and under no-till system. Anagalis arvensis, it is a broadleaf weeds. Pimpernel, it is less competitive. Cannabis sativa, Indian hemp, it is also a proliferating some of the fields found in patches, and it can grow up to height of 2 meters, and it is a competitive weed. Chinopodium murleti is also found in irrigated as well as a rain-fed area. It is also a problematic weed of wheat. Cirsium arvens, it is also a problem in case of wheat, and particularly in no-till system, it is also a problem. Convolvulus arvens in dry area, it is filled and wide, it is found a problematic weed, and its roots can grow up to 2 meters, and there is competitive in dry areas. Cornopus didymus swine grass, it is also a problem in case it is shade tolerant and found in case of irrigated area. Rumex dentatus, it is a problematic weed in fertile areas, and particularly problematic in case of no-till system. And this weed has also evolved resistance against metsulfuron in India. Vicia sativa, it is a leguminous weed, and Lathyrus ephecae, it is also leguminous weed, and these are found in some dry areas, and poorly managed field they are found. Medicago denticulata, tooth burr, it is also a problem in poorly managed field where there is less nitrogen application. Particularly, we found the more problem of this weed as compared to other weed. Fumaria parviflora, fumatory weed, it is a problem in case of light soils, and it is a hard weed to control. We need combination of herbicides to control this weed. Melilotus alba, again, it is found in poorly managed field and where there is less fertility. We found the problem of this weed. Carthamus oxygantha. This was earlier a problem, but intensive tillage and irrigation facility have reduced the problem of this weed in wheat. Malva parviflora, its problem is also increasing in case of wheat, particularly in no-till system, and where there is more moisture and we are going for no-till system, its problem is increasing. And Solanum nigrum in some of the field, its problem is also increasing. And Phaseolus minima, it's also observed in some of the field where the vegetable is rotated with wheat. For weed management, we have the different methods like preventive. In preventive, we use weed-free crop seed, well-rotten FIM, where there is a reduced viability of the weed seeds, and we remove the weeds before the seed set. These are some of the preventive measures we can follow. In case of mechanical hand weeding or mechanical interculture or use of wheel hoe, we can use for controlling of the weeds. In chemical, we use different herbicides for management of different type of weed flora in case of weed. And in case of cultural, we use different date of sowing, adjusting the date of sowing of the wheat, seed rate, spacing, management of fertilizer or irrigation. These are some of the agronomic strategies we can manipulate for the control of weeds in cultural methods. If you can see here, there is the infestation of Felis minor in case of broadcast sowing. Under such situations, it is difficult to manually remove this because of morphological similarity, as well as broadcasting sowing. We cannot go for the mechanical or interculture operations. Under these situations, we have to depend on the herbicides. That's why the farmer, in case of wheat, they are prefer chemical weed control as compared to mechanical or cultural practices, because of cost and time effectiveness. Farmer use this chemical herbicides. You can see here, when we are going for the manual weeding, we need more time and more cost. But manual weeding, when we shift to the hand hoe or wheel hoe, then we can save the time as well as cost, and there is saving of about 60% time and cost. Further, when we shift to the chemical weed control, there is drastic reduction in the time consumption as well as the cost. And further, tractor mounted or self-propelled sprayer we can use, and again there is more than 99% saving in the time, and well 87% saving in the cost. If we see the pesticide consumption pattern in India and world, globally, the herbicide usage is maximum globally as compared to fungicide or insecticide. But in case of India, the among pesticide, the maximum consumption is of herbicide, followed by fungicide, followed by herbicide. But if you see the trend globally, the herbicide usage is increasing, and one of the reason is that in case of insect or disease, we are breeding the crop, breeding for the tolerant cultivar, resistant cultivars. But in case of weeds, we are breeding which are the varieties which are the less competitive. That is why we have to depend more on the herbicides. One of the preventive method is use of the weed-free crop seeds. But we have seen in case of wheat, most of the farmers, they, because of self-pollinated crop, most of the farmer use their own seed for sowing. And in some of the fields, there is heavy infestation of these weed seeds with the crop seeds. And this is the survey done by Yadav et al. This is the survey done by Yadav et al. And who found that there is a huge infestation of this Felis minor in case of wheat. And there is contamination of about 17,000 to 17 lakh seeds of Felis minor. If there is huge contamination, then there it will create the problem during the ensuing season as well as in succeeding season. And moreover, also there is the movement of seed from one farmer to other farmer. And if there is contamination of resistant biotypes, again, it will create the problem and spread the resistance problem. Therefore, we have to use the certified seeds or well-cleaned seed for sowing. Seed bed is another important strategy for weed management. After a deep tillage, we can irrigate the field, and when the weeds germinate, we can go for the shallow tillage, so that the germinated weeds are killed and the seeds lying in the lower layers don't come to the upper layer. Or we can also kill the weed seeds using the non-selective herbicides like glyphosate or paraquat. And then we can go for directly sowing under no-till system. And because of no disturbance of the soils, there will be less emergence of the weeds and will be less problem in such situations. Again, mechanization. If we are having the broadcast sowing, then we cannot depend on this mechanical interculture operations, but some manipulations in the crop establishment method. Suppose we can go for the raised bed system where we can grow the 2 rows of wheat on the beds, and then we can go for the interculture operations using the narrow tractor tires. Or similarly, in line sowing, we can go for the wheel hoe. And these are the strategy we can also adopt for the control of weeds in case of wheat. For chemical control, we have to depend on the various herbicides, depending on the weed flora. And depending on the weed flora, if there is problem of the grassy weeds, then we have the options like clodinafo, phenoxaprop, or pinoxidine. These are the grass-specific herbicides. If we have the problem of broadleaf weeds, then we can use the 2,4-D, carfentrazone, metsulfuron, or if we are having the diverse type of broadleaf weed flora, we can use the combination of metsulfuron plus carfentrazone. We have other options which we can use for the control of grass as well as broadleaf weeds like isoproctane, where there is no resistance problem, mesosulfuron plus iodosulfuron atlantis, pendimethyl sulfosulfuron plus metsulfuron like total, clodinafo plus metsulfuron vestra, metribuzin, and clodinafo plus metribuzin like sagun. These provide the control of grass as well as broadleaf weeds. And recently we have some of the herbicides like pyroxasulfone, flumixazine, bixolozone plus metribuzin. These are particularly can target the resistance weeds. And pyroxasulfone, it is applied as a pre-emergence, or we can also use up to early post-emergence herbicide. Flumixazine is the pre-emergence, where bixolozone plus metribuzin is early post-emergence herbicide. For improving the efficiency of herbicides, we can go for some of the strategies like timely application of herbicides. Sometimes the farmer delay the application of herbicides, it leads to the poor control of weeds. Method of applications. Sometimes we have seen that farmer applies particularly metribuzin mixing with the urea or sand, and it also leads to the inefficient weed management. We should go for the spray of the herbicide combination. Sometimes farmer use the uncompatible antagonistic type of mix combinations, which should be avoided. Surfactant also helps in the improving the efficacy of the herbicides, and with some of the herbicides surfactant is available, but with some of the herbicides it is not available marketed, and we can use the surfactant for improving the efficacy of the herbicides. Underdosing is also problem initially when the new herbicide is recommended because of cost criteria, and it should be avoided. It also increases the selection pressure and reduces the weed control. Droplet size, again we have used the proper droplet size. If we here we can see if we use the coarse droplets, there is reduced efficacy of the herbicides. If we reduce the diameter of the droplet, then we can increase the number of droplets. If we reduce the diameter by half, there will be 8 times more droplets and there will be more coverage, and will have the better efficacy of the herbicides. Here you can see the efficacy of this sulfosulfuron with and without surfactant. Sulfosulfurous clodinafol, carfentrazone, its efficacy is better when applied with surfactant as compared to without surfactant. Again, clodinafol and pinoxidine. These are the herbicides marketed without external surfactant, but we have seen when we added the adjuvant with these herbicides, clodinafol, there is significant improvement in the efficacy of this clodinafol against Felis minor. Similarly, with the pinoxidine at even reduced doses, there is improvement in the efficacy of pinoxidine against Felis minor. Again, you can see here the efficacy of phenoxaprop against Echinocloa crucigali. There is at a reduced dose, there is only 17% reduction in the fresh biomass of this Echinocloa crucigali. But when we mixed with this adjuvant like outright or EDC or polyglycol, then there is significant improvement in the efficacy of this phenoxaprop against Echinocloa crucigali. Again, some of the hardy weeds needs combination of herbicides. If we apply carfentrazone or metsulfuron, there is poor control of this Fumaria parviflora. But when we apply these herbicide in combination, there is very good control of this weed. Again, if we see the weed flora at farmer field, there is a mixed weed flora. We have the infestation of grasses as well as broadleaf weeds. Under such situations, we need combination of herbicides, grass as well as broadleaf weed herbicides. But sometimes farmer mix these grass as well as broadleaf herbicides, which can cause the reduction in the efficacy of the grass herbicides. You can see here the phenoxaprop, when it is applied alone, there is a good control of this Felis minor. But when we combine it with 2,4-D ammonium, sodium salt, or this ester, then there is reduction in the efficacy. Similarly, when we have applied this herbicide with metsulfuron, again there is reduction in the efficacy of this phenoxaprop. Similarly, with clodinafol, when applied alone, even a half dose, 30 gram, it is providing good control under pot conditions. But when we applied with mixed with the 2,4-D, there is a reduction in the efficacy of this herbicide against Felis minor. Under such situations, if there is mixed flora, we have to apply the grass and broadleaf herbicide. These should be applied sequentially. If there is more problem of grass weeds, then we can go for initially the application of grass herbicides followed by the broadleaf herbicides. Again, very important, sometimes spurious brand is used by the farmers. This happened in case of Haryana and Punjab a decade ago in case of wheat. And when there is a spurious brand of this sulfosulfuron was used, there was complete crop failure of the wheat. And this season, this happened in case of MP, in case of soybean, where was the spurious brand of imidacloprid was used, and there was the complete crop failure in some of the fields with imidacloprid. Therefore, we should use the good brand of the herbicides, because if we use the spurious, either there will be damage or it will have the poor control of the weeds. For further improving the crop safety to the less selective herbicides, if you see the Haryana and Punjab, here the most of the farmer as a post-emergence option, only metribuzin is option. And in the resistance, multiple resistance prone area, there is no option. And there is a narrow selectivity with these herbicides. And adopting some of the strategies like proper time of application, applying at the time of tilling, and optimum dose and method of application instead of mixing with the sand or urea. Proper spray, following the proper spray technology, we should use this herbicide. Deeper sowing and with increased seed rate can be another strategy which can help in improving the crop safety of this metribuzin at field. Spray at a proper soil moisture. Sometimes there is more moisture, it can cause the phytotoxicity effect. Tolerant wheat genotype as well as use of crop safeners. These are another strategy we can follow for the safening the herbicides. Here you can see when we apply this metribuzin in case of pots, when their sowing was done as a surface seeding, there is a large scale phytotoxicity of metribuzin in case of wheat. But when sown at 3 centimeter or 5 to 6 centimeter, there is good tolerance in case of wheat. And this we have also observed at farmer field, where the farmer, we are going for the broadcast sowing. There we observed that there is less phytotoxicity, there is more phytotoxicity of metribuzin at farmer field as compared to farmer who are going for the line sowing. Another is if the metribuzin, if we are going for the as a pre-plant application, there is better safety of metribuzin in case of no-till system or conservation agriculture system. We can use this metribuzin as a pre-plant option. But again, there is issue with some of the weeds like Rumex. Their population may increase under such tillage options. For control of the broadleaf, some of the herbicides are Volaxipan plus Fluorosulam. It is a new herbicide under the process of registration. Which can also provide the good control of different type of weed flora. If we see the metsulfuron, it is providing control of some of the weeds, but it is not effective against the Malva pariflora. Again, carfentrazone, it is when it is applied alone, it is poor against the Lathyrus aphaca. But when we combine this metsulfuron plus carfentrazone, it is giving the good control of diverse type of weed flora. Therefore, we can adopt some of the mixtures for the control of broadleaf, diverse type of broadleaf weeds in case of wheat. Volaxipan plus fluroxypyr, it is another mixture which is under the process of registration. It is also very effective for control of various type of broadleaf weed flora in case of wheat with good crop safety, and it is also effective against the resistant Rumex dentatus. Further, if we integrate that no-till system with the residue retention, then we can reduce the weed problem in case of wheat under rice wheat system. You can see here when the residue load is increased, there is a decrease in the weed problem in case of wheat. And when this no-till system with herbicides is supported, we get the same yield as we are obtaining with the conventional tillage with herbicide. If we see the weed flora, there is a difference in no-till as well as conventional tillage. When there is no herbicide is applied, there is more problem of this Felis minor in case of conventional tillage. But in no tillage, if we are not applying the pre-plant herbicide, there is more problem of Medicago and Rumex dentatus in case of no tillage system. But if we apply the pre-plant herbicides like glyphosate or paraquat, And we can combine these non-selective herbicides with some of the herbicides like pendimethalin, and along with residue retention, then we can significantly decrease the weed problem in case of weeds, and we can get the good yield. This is the another issue in where we are using some of the persistent herbicides like sulfasulfuron. Sulfasulfuron, when it is used in wheat, it can cause the residual problem in some of the succeeding sensitive crop like maize. You can see here when sulfasulfuron applied in wheat, it has the very large scale adverse effect on case of maize. We can see the drastic reduction in the fresh biomass of maize. Similarly, in sometimes, if we are going for the late sowing of wheat, we apply the sulfasulfuron late in case in January or mid-January or late January, then it can also sometimes cause the residual effect on in case of this cotton crop also. We have seen sometimes. Even sorghum is also sensitive to the sulfasulfuron. If there is application of the sulfasulfuron in case of wheat and we are going for the sorghum, then it can have the adverse effect on sorghum also. Under such situations, either we have to avoid the application of these herbicides, persistent herbicides like sulfasulfuron, or if we have to apply these herbicides, then we have to adopt the cropping system, rice wheat system or mung bean. If we grow if we grow the mung bean or rice, then there is no residual effect on these crops. We can grow these crops safely, or we can go for the multiple tillage or irrigation along with the application of FIM. It can also help in reducing the problem of this residue. If we see, this is the emerging problem in case of wheat in India. Presently, if we see globally, there are 86 herbicide resistance weeds. In case of India, we have the 5 weeds which have evolved the resistance against different herbicides. Among these 5 weeds, 3 are the grass weeds: Barley minor, Avena ludovicina wild oat, and Polypogon mons phalensis. These are the 3 weeds which have evolved resistance against different herbicides. Felismine has evolved multiple resistance, whereas Avena ludovicina has evolved resistance against ACs and ALS. Polypogon has evolved resistance against ALS inhibitor herbicide, the sulfasulfuron. This Rumex dentatus and Chinopodium album, these have evolved resistance against metsulfuron. This is ALS inhibitor. Here you can see this multiple herbicide resistance population of Felis minor, which is having resistance against isoprotron, clodinafop, and sulfasulfuron. And for its control, this pendimethalin, pyroxasulfone, and flufenicet, these can be, as well as metribuzin, can be used. These are the different situations. If we have susceptible population, then we have the large number of options. But if we have resistance against 3 group herbicide, that is isoprotron, clodinafop, sulfasulfuron, then we have the very limited options, particularly in case of Haryana and Punjab. If you see the post-emergence option, only post-emergence option is metribuzin. But still in some of the fields, we have observed that the resistance has also evolved against these herbicides. Under such situation, there is a need that we should find out some of the post-emergence herbicide options. But as a pre-plant options, we have pyroxasulfone, pendimethalin is all herbicide is still effective against resistant population. Flumexigene is another option which can be used as a pre-emergence herbicide. Flufenicet, it is also effective but not available in the market. If you can see here the resistance in case of wild oak. This is a clodinafop sensitive, but here you can see even 2x dose of the chlorinaphore. Wild route is not controlled by chlorinaphore. Similarly, with the sulfasulfuron, it is not controlled. Again, with pinoxidine is also not effective. But isoproton is effective against this wild route. We can think of reviving some of the old herbicides like isoproton for control of such problem. Rumex dentatus and Chinopodium album. Again, we can see the resistance against the metsulfuron. Here you can see the very high level of resistance. Recommended dose is 4 gram per hectare, but even there is escape with the 16 time dose of this metsulfuron in pot. And here you can see the picture taken at farmer field where the farmer applied the increased dose of metsulfuron twice, but failed to control this resistant population of this Rumex dentatus. Here you can see the resistance against metsulfuron and showing the cross resistance against Atlantis, but 2,4-D and carfentrazone or their combination is effective. You can see here the very high level of resistance in case of metsulfuron and cross resistance in case of trisulfuron and pyroxalam, and as well as Olexifen plus fluorosalam. We evaluated about 119 population of this Rumex dentatus against various group of herbicides. And we observed that carfentrazone, eclonifen plus diflufenican, which is again a mixture under the process of registration, isoproton, fluoxipyr, 2,4-D, and these herbicides provided more than 75% control of these resistant populations. But metsulfuron provided only control of 24% of the populations. And this means that there is a large scale spread of this resistance population in Haryana and Punjab. Here again, you can see the resistance profile of this Rumex dentatus against various herbicides. Pendimethalin, it is the old herbicide, but very effective against this resistant population of this Ferlis minor, this Rumex dentatus. Again, metsulfuron, it is having the high level of resistance against various biotype, but trisulfuron, pyroxalam, fluorosalam, these are showing the cross resistance against the resistant population of metsulfuron. But fluoxipyr, carfentrazone, isoproton, metribuzin, and 2,4-D, these are providing the good control of this resistant population of this Rumex dentatus. This is another resistance case of this polypogon mons valensis. You can see the resistance against sulfasulfuron, but chlorinaphore and pyroxasulfone, these are the providing the control of this polypogon. Here you can see the high level of resistance in case of this polypogon against sulfasulfuron, but this chlorinaphore, pinoxidine, phenoxaprop, and isoproton, they are providing control of this resistant population of polypogon. Pyroxasulfone, it is also effective. Even a very low dose is quite effective under pot studies. Flufenacet, it is also effective. But again, if you see the Atlantis, there is a high level of resistance. Even GR90 value is more than 18,000 gram per hectare. Similarly, with the case of the pyroxalam, it is having very high level of this GR90 value. This is the control of this multiple herbicide resistant population of Felis minor with pyroxasulfone. Even a reduced dose of 50 gram in pot studies giving the good control of this resistant population. we can use this as a pre-emergence. Pre-emergence is recommended, but we have found that it can also be used as pre-plant in case of no-till system, as well as early post-emergence around 20 days after sowing, just before first irrigation we can use. But problem with this herbicide is that it is poor against some of the broadleaf weeds like Medicago denticulata or Rumex dentatus. And if there is a mixed weed flora, under such situation, we can go for the combination of different herbicides. We can combine the metsulfuron with this, even trisulfuron or pyroxasulfone has also shown the good control of diverse weed flora in case of wheat when these are applied as early post-emergence in case of wheat. Pyroxasulfone plus sulfosulfuron, another combination, have also shown the good control of this diverse weed flora in case of wheat. Flumexazine and flufenacet under post studies were found were quite effective for control of this multiple herbicide resistant population of this Felis minor, which is resistant to isoprochlorone, sulfosulfuron, or clodinofop. Even the reduced dose under the post studies given the good control of this multiple resistant population. Flumexazine, again, it provides the good control of Felis minor, but it is poor against wild oat and effective against the problematic weeds like Rumex dentatus, Medicago denticulata. We can use it as a pre-emergence. Besides these, there are other resistance management strategies like crop rotation, herbicide rotation, herbicide mixture, and use of optimum dose of herbicide and applying the alternate herbicides at proper time and using the appropriate method of application and cultural control practices we can also adopt for the control of resistant populations. If we see globally, there is less introduction of new mode of action of herbicide. And under such situations, we can have some of the strategies like developing herbicide tolerant crop cultivars, which are tolerant to less selective or non-selective against the non-selective herbicides. No-till system, again, this system can also help when there is emergence of the resistance problem. Here we can use some of the non-selective herbicide as a pre-plant options. And exploring less selective herbicides through the crop sweetener, we can explore these in the resistant prone areas. Again, you can see metrivision, there is a narrow window of application as well as a narrow window of dose. And we observed that we screened different wheat genotypes, and we found that some of the genotypes are even tolerant up to the 700 gram of AIO of the metrivision. And these type of genotypes we can involve in the breeding program for developing the tolerant cultivars so that we can effectively manage the resistance problem. Again, although topramazone, it is a maize herbicide, and when we apply it in case of wheat, there is bleaching. But with safener, we observed that there is good crop safety when it was used with crop safener like chlorpyrifos. Also, the tillage option like no-till options, we can explore it for the management of this Felis minor. When we are going for the zero tillage wheat, there is less problem of Felis minor. And the reason is that although when we are going for the puddle transplanting, its seeds are mixed uniformly in the soil. And one reason is that when we are going for the no-till system, there is the more soil strength, particularly in the upper layer. Because of this mechanical impedance or physical hindrance, there is a less emergence of Felis minor under this no-till system. Another is when the seeds are covered lightly with soil, and it required the brief flash of light, which is not available in case of no-till system, but it is available in case of convention system. And that's the reason is that there is less problem. Moreover, there is more predation in case of no-till system. And these are the reasons that these are the responsible for the less infestation of this hairless miner in case of no-till system. And this is the resistance problem is also responsible for the adoption of no-till system in case of Haryana and Punjab. In the late 90s, when there was resistance, isobutanol resistance, and there was no herbicides or the new herbicides which came later on, they are costly. Because of these reason of less problem of hairless miner, as well as to save the cost on the costly herbicides, the farmer adopted this no-till system in Haryana and Punjab. Again, you can see the multi-location data, and when we are applying herbicide, we are having the same yield in case of no-till as well as conventional tillage as well as no-till. But when we are not applying the herbicides, there is more, we are getting the better yield in case of no-tillage system because of the lesser problem of hairless miner. These fields were dominated by the hairless miner. Again, combining this no-till system with early sowing, again we can reduce the problem of hairless miner in case of wheat. But when we are adopting this no-till system, this shift in tillage may shift the weed flora also. And Rumex dentatus problem is increasing where we are going for the no-till system, particularly where we are not applying the pre-plant non-selective herbicides. And the basic reason is that when we are going for the puddling, its seeds float on the soil surface because of perianth with the seed, and there is more moisture and more concentration of seed on the soil surface is responsible for the more problem of this weed in case of no-till system. But in conventional tillage system, there is faster drying of the upper soil layer, and this weed require more moisture for germination. And seeds which are lying below the 4 centimeter depth fail to germinate. That is the reason its population is more in case of no-till as compared to conventional tillage system. Polypogon is another weed which is found more in case of no-till system. This is the data from our long-term trials where we are having the zero tillage transplanting in case of rice and dry rotary tillage where we are preparing the field and followed by ponding of water and transplanting water, and wet rotary we are going for the wet tillage, that is puddling with rotavator. These are the 3 tillage option in case of rice and 3 tillage option in case of conventional tillage, zero tillage and rotary tillage. And where we are having the double no-till system, zero tillage transplanting in rice and zero tillage in case of wheat, we are having the more problem of this polypogon monspelensis. Under such situation, we can go for the non-selective herbicides like glyphosate or paraquat mixing with the some of the residual herbicides like pendimethalin or triflurin. These will provide the control of emerging weed as well as allow the control of later on emerging weeds. This is the effect of tillage, residue management and irrigation method on weeds in case of wheat. When we are going for the puddle transplanted rice as well as conventional tillage wheat with flood irrigation, we are having the more problem of weeds in case of wheat. But when we are going for the zero tillage directed rice, zero tillage wheat or zero tillage movement, that is triple no-till system with residue retention, and irrigation is subsurface drip irrigation, then we are having the lesser problem of this weeds in case of wheat. Residue management, it is the another which affects the herbicide efficacy as well as weed infestation. These are the different residue management options like removal, burning, incorporation, retention. And among these options, the most unhealthy practice is of burning. Burning, besides causing the environmental pollution and loss of the precious nutrients present in the crop residue, it also affects the herbicide efficacy as well as the weed problem. Incorporation, it is better than the burning, but it still required more energy due to incorporation of the residue. Retention is the best strategy we can see. You can see here the one field is with the residue burning and another is with residue removal. In the residue removal situation, we can apply the pre-plant, pre-emergence or post-emergence herbicide. There is no issue. But in case of where there is burning, there is issue with the soil applied herbicides. It can reduce the efficacy of herbicides, which you can see here where there is residue is burned. There is more weed problem and reduction in the efficacy of this isoprotein as well as pendimethalin against Felis minor. Again, you can see here the pendimethalin and isoprotein. When these were applied, when in the imports with where the soil and S is mixed, there is less motility with these herbicides due to the S. You can see here when there is mix of S is mixed with the soil, there is escape of this Felis minor with pendimethalin as compared to where there is no S. Again, you can see with pyroxasulfone also. Pyroxasulfone efficacy is also reduced, and there is with the when the soil is mixed with the S. And this we have also observed at farmer fields. Some farmers, they are reporting with this herbicide that they are getting the poor control with these herbicides, particularly of the Felis minor. And poor control is in those fields where the farmer is burning the rice residue. And because of this S, the efficacy of this pyroxasulfone is reduced at farmer field also. Again, you can see the poor control of this wild oat with pyroxasulfone when there is S mixed with the soil. Therefore, the best strategy is we retain the residue on the surface, and residue retention reduces the weed due to mulch. And you can see here the residue load is increased. There is a decrease in the weed biomass and residue load of more than 6 tons. There is drastic reduction in the weed dry weight. Now we have the machines which we can use for seeding in the presence of loose crop residue. We have the happy seeder which can seed in the presence of full crop residue. Even 8 to 9 tons of residue is there, then we can use this machine. We have the new machines like rotary disc drill, and it has a triple disc mechanism. This machine can also seed different crops in the presence of various crop residue. Even this rotary disc drill can seed in the in sugarcane ratoon. You can see in the picture wheat sowing is being done in the presence of full trace of sugarcane, and it will provide the additional crop of wheat and will improve the profitability. And if this type of mulch is there, it will smother the weeds and restrict the transmission of light to the soil surface, thereby restricting the germination and growth of the weeds. Even some of the crop residue can have also a allelopathic effect, which can also help in the reducing the weed problem. Again, when we are moving toward the conservation agriculture, we have to address some of the issues like the efficacy of the pre-emergence herbicides. when we are retaining the residue, efficacy of pre-emergence herbicides is reduced. If you see, you can see here the pyroxasulfone when it and pendimethalin or their combination is applied. When the residue is retained, we need more dose of herbicide for reducing the 90% growth as compared to when there is no residue retained on the soil surface. We need 6 times more pyroxasulfone when we are having the residue retention on the soil surface. But what we can do is we can go for the pre-plant application of these herbicides as compared to pre-emergence. When we are going for the pre-plant application of herbicides, then there will be the residue will be anchored. It will be more in the vertical position, and there will be less interception of the herbicides, and more herbicide will reach to the soil surface and will help in the better control of weeds. Crop rotation is another important strategy which can be used for weed management, and it can be utilized for breaking the association of some of the problematic weeds of the wheat crop. You can see in picture, this is trifolium, this is fodder crop. If we are going for once in 2-3 years, we rotate the field, then due to repeated cutting, there will be no seed set and there will be reduction in the seed bank, and there will be reduced problem of weeds in case of wheat. Even mustard can also be utilized, because here we can apply different grass herbicides for the control of weeds. Again, here you can see rice wheat. When there is monocropping of rice wheat system, there is more problem of Felis minor. But when we, by intensifying this rice wheat system, by including the short duration crop like vegetable or pea or potato, we can reduce the problem of weeds in case of wheat, because in case of late sown wheat, there will be less problem of Felis minor as well as other weeds. We can explore this intensification of this system in some of the areas. It will also improve the profitability. Besides potato, winter maize can be another option. It can be rotated with wheat, because here atrazine or H50 herbicides, they can help in managing some of the problematic resistant weeds. Sunflower and sugarcane, these are also the options which can be explored for the control of these weeds in case of wheat, if these are integrated with the wheat-based system. Competitive crop cultivar, by exploring the cultivars which have fast initial growth, which cover the surface fast, such type of cultivars can be utilized for the suppressing weeds. And in case of wheat, the crop cultivars which are having the height more than 1 meter, they are more competitive as compared to the cultivar which are having height less than 1 meter. And you can see here the triple dwarf. You can see the full of Felis minor as compared to tall ones where there is less problem of Felis minor. Again, you can see from the data of Paul and Gill that where there is a tall genotype is grown, then there is less dry weight of this Felis minor as compared to medium and dwarf. We can also exploit these, having the faster growth of these cultivars and taller, having more biomass. Narrow row spacing as well as competitive crop cultivars can also be utilized for suppressing the weed problem. As compared to 20 centimeter or 22.5 centimeter, the narrow spacing has the lesser problem of weeds, as well as the cultivars which are having the faster early growth can help in the suppressing the weeds. Also the early sowing. If we see here, when we are going for the early sowing, particularly in northwest plain zone, that is Haryana and Punjab, when we are going for the early sowing, that last week of October, then we are getting the less problem of Felis minor as compared to the timely or late sowing. And you can see even we are getting the yield higher when we are going for the early sowing as compared to the normal sowing, because the most of the varieties, they are the longer duration, we are getting the better yield because of there is less terminal heat stress when we are going for the early sowing. These are the different mechanical weed control options which can also be explored, like wheel hoe or hand hoe. Allelopathy, it can be also be utilized for the control of weeds. Rotating crops with the allelopathic effect, which can help by releasing the allochemicals into the soil, and that will help in the reducing the weed problem. Even we can also explore the use of this allelopathic crop as a mulch, which can also help in the reducing the weed problem in case of weed. Even bioherbicides, some of the chemicals can be extracted from the plants, which can be utilized to develop the natural bioherbicides for the weed control. Feed flamer, it can be also utilized, particularly in no-till system or in conventional system, just before the planting or emergence of the crop. Harvest weed seed control, it is being utilized in advanced countries, and this can also help this can also help in decreasing the number of weed seeds, replacing the soil seed bank. And these management practices include use of like sap carts or Harrington seed districtor or bale direct systems, and these can be means can be targeted the chaff during the harvest. Supply technology, it is also very important, and we can see it is very poorly managed at the farmer field. If you see, and if you see, most of the farmers, they are using the cut nozzles and single nozzle. If we are going for the single nozzle, there is the poor control of weeds because there will be escapes of the weeds. And some of the farmers, they are also using the spray gun. It is also not recommended for the control of weeds using herbicides. And best strategy can be we can use self-propelled sprayers, or in future we can explore the use of drones for the control of weeds through herbicides. Overall, if see, the alternate herbicides will be required, and it will be central for the weed management. But we have to support this strategy with other systems, non-chemical systems like cultural, biological, preventive, mechanical. If we adopt these systems, then we can effectively manage the weeds. And our focus should be on the reducing the seed bank and providing the competitive advantage to the crop using the various cultural practices, along with the use of proper supply technology. And if we adopt this agronomic strategy, then we can effectively manage the weeds in case of wheat. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So we'll take questions from our participants. So participants, if you have any question, you can raise your hands. Meanwhile, sir, we will take questions in question and answer box. So here one of the participant, he mentioned he want to ask this, how many days before harvest we have to take pre-plant application of herbicide in case of residue retention plots.
How many days before?
Harvest. You can see that, sir, in question and answer box. How many days before harvest we have to take pre-plant application of herbicide in case of residue retention plots?
After harvesting the crop, after harvesting of the crop, non-selective herbicides, we can go for immediately before the sowing of the crops, like glyphosate or paraquat. They have the no residual effect in case of soil, and the crop is safe. We can go for the sowing of the various crop after the application of this non-selective herbicide. And in case of this conservation agriculture, we can, after the harvest of the crop, in case of anchored residue, we can go for the irrigating the crop, irrigating the field, and if after the emergence of the weeds, we can apply these non-selective herbicides like glyphosate, paraquat, or glufosinate. Or if we are going for the sowing of the crop, we can also go for the mixing of some of the residual herbicides like pendimethalin with this. These non-selective herbicides will control the emerged weeds, and this pendimethalin will provide the residual control of the weeds.
So, okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your insightful talk, especially sharing your thoughts on herbicide resistance in weeds, and also you shared your experiences. So thank you very much.